Hi, I'm Doc Palmer. I'm the author of McGraw-Hill's best-selling reliability book, the Maintenance Planning and Scheduling Handbook. Maintenance planning and scheduling are competitive edges in industry. Planning is the quality of execution piece of maintenance, and scheduling is the productivity piece of maintenance. We're not trying to replace skilled craftspersons. What we want the planners to do is run a Deming cycle, continuously making job plans better, making a preparation for the job, using that skill and experience of the craftspersons to make these plans better and better and better year after year after year after year. We're not just telling craftspersons how to do their jobs. The purpose of scheduling is not to complete the schedule. The purpose of scheduling is to help us complete more work than we would normally complete, which is possible by fully loading the weekly schedule, to defeat Parkinson's law. If you're above 90% schedule compliance, you probably haven't fully loaded the schedule. You haven't defeated Parkinson's law, and you're staying flat, just taking care of reactive work. But if we fully load schedules, and it's okay to break the schedules, we get a 50% pop in work order completion rate. And that extra work is purely proactive work. That's hard to get to, but it's what keeps things from breaking in the future. This is the second episode in actually creating a weekly schedule. There are two scheduling exercises in Chapter 6 of the handbook. We're working on one of those. Last week we put together the forecast. We got the labor forecast from the supervisor, and we made some points. Today, as schedulers, we're going to dig through the backlog, sort the backlog, and match it with that forecast and make some points about that. So I think you'll enjoy this. I always do. If you look at the backlog on the board, this is the entire backlog for this mechanical crew we've been talking about. It could be a couple of hundred work orders, a couple of thousand work orders. I've just put these all on one page so we can see these principles and everything. So treat this as the entire backlog for this mechanical maintenance crew. This mechanical maintenance crew deals with mostly steam unit number 1 and also has some common equipment responsibilities. These are in the order of that the work orders were written, where work order 1, the smallest number, is the oldest work order. And work order number 13 is our newest work order. It's just been mostly recently written. On the work type, a couple things to mention there. The main thing is that a 7 in this company is a preventive maintenance. When all is said and done, we want to make sure we're doing all the preventive maintenance jobs. We don't want to get behind on those. 5s are breakdowns. 9s are more corrective maintenance. 8 is a predictive maintenance driven activity. So the 9s are more proactive, certainly. The 7s are. The lower the priority 2, so like a priority 4 would be more proactive in nature. It can wait to head off a bigger problem usually than a priority 1. And so the priority system here that I'm used to, we used it at my plant where I worked in Florida, and the one that's in my book has 5 levels, where a 0 is an emergency. We would want to start that right now. We'd be willing to come in the middle of the night, no questions asked. A 1 is urgent. We would like to complete that this week. And then we'd like to do a priority 2 next week. Priority 3 this month. And a priority 4 could wait longer than a month. Might be something we just don't want to forget about, don't want to lose track of, or could be a project or something like that. We talked about priorities quite a bit in an earlier episode or 2, but 0s and 1s are not maintenance. They are our enemy. They are failures to maintain. We don't want to have to react. If we just had 3 levels, emergency, urgent, and routine, that wouldn't be enough to help us figure out what we want to do next week. The work that can wait till next week or longer, how much can we do next week? So we need to pick among that. And these 2s, 3s, and 4s should be about 80% of our work. So just a single emergency urgent routine, not good enough for 80% of our work. So we really need 4 levels now, this week. They can wait till next week. It can wait a little bit longer. I like 5. It stretches that out a little bit. You could have more levels to stretch it out more, but then it gets harder to pick a priority. So I like about 5 levels. It's simple, but not too simple. So with that said, we do not see any priority zeros in our ready-to-go backlog. 0 should be in progress if they're not complete. They might be you're working on this week, then a carry over to next week, but they still wouldn't be in the ready-to-go backlog. This is just the ready-to-go backlog for this crew. And it's also outage code 0. It could be done during a normal week. So it's conditional about that too. We don't schedule stuff that's waiting on parts. We don't schedule stuff that's not been planned yet. Just stuff we have the parts, we think we know what we're going to do on it. So waiting to schedule or planned or ready to go, whatever your status is for that. Now, if the parts come in next week for a job we really wanted to do, we can break the schedule. If something happens next week, it's okay to break the schedule. A priority 1 comes up, we knock out a job plan, we do it next week. That's okay. But as far as putting the schedule together, this crew works Monday through Thursday. It's 410s. Morning on Thursday, these are the jobs that are ready to go. We just consider that. So there's several priority 1s. Apparently we checked with the supervisor. They said they weren't going to do it today, so we knocked out a job plan for it. Don't let just priority 1s just bypass planning. And then at the end of the week, some of those priority 1s, it turns out they're still in the backlog. Doesn't mean we abuse the priority system. It just means in the big scheme of things, we just didn't get to them. So now we can schedule and bundle with them for next week. So obviously the first way we would like to sort this is by the priority system. I'm going to take this as a simple Excel sort command, obviously. Your computer should be able to do that fine. I want to illustrate the principles just simply though. Here are the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Now, within the same priority, I like to sort by age. So of all these 4 priority 3s, the oldest one is on the top, 3, 6, 8, and then work order number 10. Number 10 would be the most recently written work request. Same for priority 2s, they're by age. Priority 1s by age. I think that has a lot of power for us, sorting it by age. When people ask, well, when are you going to do my work? And you say, well, yours is in line with the priority 2s, and there's some older priority 2s ahead of yours, and yours is working its way up through the stack. People like to hear that, but in a real sense, when we start fully loading schedules where it's okay to break the schedule, you'll get all this work done. And in about a month or 2, you'll run out of work orders, which will actually get operators to tell you more about little stuff that they wouldn't tell you about before because they're afraid you're never going to do it. We want operators to tell us about little stuff so we can make a career out of doing that to prevent 0s and 1s from happening to begin with. That's our maintenance strategy. Get people to tell us about 2s, 3s, and 4s, and we have to be productive enough to do it all. Now we want to provide the service that's really valuable in helping supervisors appreciate what we're doing, and that's the bundling. If we do this CP job, the condensate polishers, to priority 1 job next week, it'd be great if we could go ahead and do this priority 2 preventive maintenance job. I mean, that's pure pleasure. Do a PM the same time you're going to be out there doing a reactive job. While you're out there fixing it, go and change the oil on it, or whatever that job is. And then there's a priority 4. This is another breakdown, work type 5, but it's one that it could wait. Well, let's go ahead and do it while we're out there. So we want to bundle this priority 4, priority 2 with that priority 1. We make money by doing these priorities first, but there's a big sense of productivity and convenience when you're out there to do more work if you can do the work at the same time you're honoring these priorities. This fuel oil service system, boiler feed pump system, pretty important system for a power plant, has a breakdown. We need to go ahead and do it. There's a priority 3. It's a little breakdown. That we could go and do that at the same time. Let's put that up there and do that. And then IF, it's an intake fish screen. There's a priority 3 job. It's more corrective in nature. There's another one out there. When you're out at the waterfront, let's go ahead and do this other job too. So we'll bundle this priority 4 with this. That's the real service that we can express ourselves as adding value for the supervisors. Let us dig through the backlog and bundle the work together. So this is not a resort command, it's more of a regroup computer command, where up under the same system location or asset that you're grouping with, you can group common things out there after you've made that initial sort. So we've grouped that. Group the condensate polisher work, the fuel oil service work, and the intake fish screen work. This is the best bang for the buck doing these jobs going down. Do we have the labor to do these? That's what we're going to ask now with the labor forecast that we developed in the last episode. I'm going to briefly move this sorted and regroup backlog to look at the forecast that we developed last time. And we've got welder 35 hours worth of labor available for next week. For senior mechanic, we have 35 hours available for next week. For painter, we've got 20 hours. For newer, say junior mechanic, if you will, 35 hours available. And for our helper, that's our apprentice that we discussed last week, why we're calling that a helper, we have 40 hours. That's our 165 hours worth of labor that we had. So I'm going to put that's where we got that, is from our forecast that we did about 10 o'clock in the morning, the last day of the week, getting that from the supervisors. Now, let me point out a couple things here. If every single job in this entire backlog required a certified welder, we could only do 35 hours worth of work because nobody else is qualified to do that work. We've only have 35 hours worth of certified welder. Now, if all the work in the entire backlog required a senior mechanic, it looks like we could do 35 hours worth of work, but in my union agreements, I can use a certified welder as a senior mechanic. In fact, our certified welders came from our senior mechanic craft. They got a welding certificate to do that. Well, Doc, why would you want to use a welder that's paid more as a lower paid senior mechanic? Well, maybe I don't have any senior mechanics and I don't have any welding work. Well, of course I want to use my welders as senior mechanics. But it has to do with these priorities too. We want to underutilize people if we have to get this work done and not let that work just hang because I don't have the skill available. Now you have to do that within your union agreements. Are you allowed to use a welder as a senior mechanic? And in your politics too. At my plant, mechanics want to do as much as they can, and they're certainly compensated for that. Now, if every job in the entire backlog required a junior mechanic, similarly, I could do 35 plus 35 plus 35. I could do 105 hours worth of work. Doc, why would you want to use a welder as a junior mechanic? Well, because I want to get that work done, and I'm out of junior mechanics or senior mechanics. we would rather have an overskilled workforce than an underskilled workforce. We want to get this work done. Now, that also preaches back to our planning effort. Don't overskill the jobs when you're planning it. If it could be done by a junior mechanic, don't plan it for a senior mechanic. And then similarly, if I can use any of these crafts as helpers at my plant. Everybody wants to pitch in and get the important work done so we can produce a product. I could do 165 hours worth of work. Now we have some little things in between there where we don't want anybody but the painter doing paint work. We don't want other people in the paint shop. It's real risky to get people clogging up paint equipment and stuff. And then a similar preference is our supervisors do not want to use painters as helpers unless it's last resort. It just has something to do with the craft arrangement and stuff. But they would rather use a welder as a helper rather than a painter, even though the painter is less paid. So, not challenging that, but accepting that, we want to put together a schedule that's acceptable to the supervisor. We want to put a schedule together that the supervisor would have put together if they were clogged up in their office bundling the work orders. We want to provide that service. That's our job as schedulers. So with that in mind, let's create the schedule. The first job up here, I need a tech for 10 hours. Can I do that? Well, yes, I've got 35 hours. I'm going to cross off the 35 and write 25. And I've scheduled that job. In a computer, you could change the status to scheduled, put the week number. With an Excel, you could highlight it or change the status. With a paper, you could hand that piece of paper, or you could just end up with these work orders on an Excel sheet and say, here's the schedule for next week. The next job down, I need a tech for 6 hours and 2 helpers for 12. Okay, let's do the tech for 6. Well, the tech's already doing something else. No, this is for the whole week. See, I don't have to worry about names or days. This makes this really easy. Then I need 2 helpers, but I've only got 1 helper. Well, I don't know who they're going to assign this job. I could use a welder, mechanic, or a painter as a helper, or a junior mechanic. But what I'm going to do is just take all 12 hours out of the helper, and that leaves 28. That's not how they're going to assign the work. I just know that using the minimum hours, this is a batch of work that's going to work next week. And the proof is in the pudding. When you come up with a batch of work this way, you give it to the supervisor, they're going to look at it and say, yeah, this makes sense for the people that I got, and go after it. The saving grace is it's okay to break the schedule if they don't get it done. But this does come up with a good batch of work for the week. It's a credible schedule. So I've scheduled 2 jobs, the tech for 10 hours and the tech and 2 helpers for 6 hours, everybody. Now I need a mechanic and a helper for 2 hours each. Okay, that's easy. I take the mechanic down to 33, and I need the helper. Okay, well, that's another 2 helper hours. I've scheduled that job. Now I need a tech for 7 and a helper for 7. A lot of these jobs require helpers, and so we're all going to have to pitch in here to get this more important, urgent work done. More urgent work, not necessarily urgent priority. So I need a tech for 7. Okay, that drops that to 12. And the helper drops that down to 19. And I've scheduled that job. I've scheduled 1, 2, 3, 4 jobs. Okay, now I need a tech for 15 hours. I've only got 12. Can I do that job? Well, sure. I can use a mechanic, a senior mechanic, or a welder. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the 12 hours first, and then get another 3 hours from the mechanic. So that'll give me my 15 hours. I'm not splitting that job in half. It's not going to be, you do this job for 12, then turn it over to this person to finish up for the other 3 hours. We don't know how these jobs are going to end up. They're all plus or minus 100%. evenly across the board. Some are over, some are under, and some are going to have slow mechanics. Some are going to have fast mechanics. You're going to have stuff that comes up next week that's going to break the schedule anyways. And all this is going to be okay. And this comes up with a solid way to schedule the work for next week. So just hang in there. So I've done the tech. Now I need the helper for 15 on that job. So that's going to drop that down to 4. Now I need a welder and a helper for 8 hours each. Okay, the welder's easy. Drop that to 27. Oops, my math is terrible. At least drawing it on the board. And I only got 4 hours of helper. Okay, well, same philosophy as doc math. We'll get the 4 hours here. We'll get the other 4 hours from our next up skill and drop that to 26. So I've scheduled the welder and the helper. Now, I've scheduled all the priority 1 work. We would probably normally have done the priority 1 next week, but since I put it in the schedule, I was able to bundle with those 3 reactive jobs, 3 other proactive works that we might not have done next week. This is great for the supervisor. While you're out there anyways, could you do this other work? That's the service we're providing to help them. So we've done the priority 1 work and the bundled stuff in it. On the priority 2, on this JC system, I need a mechanic and a helper for 20 hours each. Okay, the mechanic, we'll drop that to 6. And just because I know we're going to end up chewing up the welder anyways, I'm going to go ahead and use the welder for the bulk of for all the helper hours. And that leaves 7. So I've done the mechanic and the helper using a senior mechanic and a welder as a helper. Yes, I would rather use the welder up here as a helper than save the welder for a priority 4 job at the very bottom of the backlog. This is how we make money, is maintaining by doing this work to prevent failures. Then I need the next job down, work order number 11, I need a mechanic and a helper for 10 hours each. Okay, I've only got 6 hours of mechanic, so I'll take that. I can use a welder as a mechanic, so I'll take that down to 3, get the other 4 hours there. And then I need 10 hours of helper. I'm going to use the 3 hours of the welder that was already partially being used. These are just hours. They are not people, and it's for the whole week, and this is a good batch of work for the entire week. It's a blobby estimates going into a week, and it's going to fit in the bucket. I'm going to take those 3 hours and get 7 hours from here, and I'm honoring my agreement with the supervisors. I did not have any equal priority paint job and didn't have anyone else, so it was okay for me to use a painter as a helper. That's my agreement with the supervisor. Now I'm down here, I've got 13 hours of painter, and I've got 2 paint jobs here that are both priority 3. One's 40 hour and one's 4 hour. We're going to start the big job for sure. So the question is, should we go ahead and knock out the little job? And I'm okay either way. For now, and just for the example in the book, I went ahead and knocked out the little job, leaves me 9 hours. And then we've got this 40-hour paint job. We're going to start that. So we're going to go negative 31. We're going to include that job there. So we've scheduled all these jobs all the way down to here. And this is the schedule that we would present to the supervisors. Now, I scheduled 196 hours, which is 118%. I've been insistent before this that we schedule 100, fully 100%. Don't go over 100. Don't stop under 100. But we had a reason to do this particular paint job. And what I know is going to happen next week, the supervisor is going to start the painter on the little paint job. And when he knocks out the little paint, get him started on the big job, and then hope they're not going to have to use the painter in one of these other jobs. So that's kind of a combination of the theory plus what we know they're going to actually do. And it makes sense to put that big paint job in there because we know what they're going to do. If you end up only scheduling 95%, you're okay. And I'd say be leery about going over 100. Only go over 100 if you have a specific reason to do that. We're not going to schedule these little IF jobs because they're bundled together. And we're not trying to make a stretch goal. We're trying to get a legitimate 100%. This makes sense for your crew. And go after it. And it's okay if you don't get it done. And then we're going to be productive. And we're going to find out we don't have enough productive work. We're not used to generating that. That'll get operators used to telling us about little things. That'll allow us to put more of our people into doing predictive and project work, which keeps things from breakings. I see a lot of plants that when they start fully loading the schedules where it's okay to break the schedule, they run out of work in about 2 months. And it's a great problem to have. And then some supervisors, they don't want to run out of work. So they start looking for the things that they should be looking for. And not that they weren't doing that, but now that they have more of an opportunity to go out and find the things and write work orders on their own, things to be taken care of. You could redistribute people among crews that are out of work to people that need a little help. So that's what we wanted. It's just a simple batch of work, list of work orders for the week. It doesn't have to be a day by day, hour by hour. In fact, if we made this day by day, hour by hour, it would have taken a lot longer than this 26 minutes I've got on the clock right now and the 15 minutes we spent last episode. But then when we show this batch of work to the operators and the maintenance crews, we want it to be simple. How's this work look? And it's just the draft work, the grunt work. How's it look? The supervisors will accept it after they understand how you put it together generally, that it's what their resource is, and it's okay to break the schedule. The operators will accept it knowing that it's okay to break the schedule. The whole fact that it doesn't have to be perfect and it's an aid for us to focus us for the week is what makes it work. And it really does accelerate productivity, this full batch of work. It's got to be okay to break the schedule. And if you ever tie supervisor pay to schedule compliance, you've lost the war. There'll be too much pressure to underload the schedule, then we won't defeat Parkinson's law. So keep it simple. That's just one way to schedule. It's the way I like to do it. It's worked for years. It's in the handbook, and it's helped people in a lot of places. So thank you for letting me be part of your maintenance family. Check out my website, palmerplanning.com, for current public workshops and other things, and articles and magazine articles and conference presentations I've made. Thank you very much.